Budget is for sure one of the most tricky words in any language, really. Nearly 3/4 of Americans have a monthly budget. From those 74%, 84% have claimed that they have overspent, and many have used credit cards to cover it. I hear so much bad comments about the younger generations, but I disagree. I think the younger generations have a lot more tools and a lot more self-awareness that the older generations ever had access to. So, if we have the right tools, why do we still struggle to save money? We can rightfully blame on inflation, the crazy house market, low payment rates, you name it. Unfortunately, there's not much we can do about this. But there is one thing in our today's society that keeps this snowball going that we can actually control. Bear with me. Don't you think that it's interesting that our school system would rather for us to know all the presidents or kings by order rather than to teach us how to do our taxes or how to make a budget? Wouldn't it be more important to be financially independent human beings that work to live and not live to work? The problem is that we live in a rigged system, and credit cards companies actually want us to be bad at our finances because that's how they make money themselves. And how do they convince us to spend money? You guessed it, with advertisement. Don't get me wrong, advertisement can be great. If done well, it can be extremely creative, entertaining, and create a better relationship between the brand and the customer, which of course can be amazing. If it's actually something that we need, that aligns with our values and budget, there's absolutely nothing wrong with buying stuff. The problem with advertisement is that it is the most profitable when founded on impulse buys. Things like once in a lifetime deal, only 5 rooms left, only until midnight. These are all marketing strategies that play with our FOMO feelings. And then we book that shared hostel room thinking that we just got the last available bed. And then when we get there, we find that we are alone in that room. Advertisement also thrives on making us feel bad about ourselves by showing us unrealistic beauty and status standards and immediately offering us a fast way to get it. The worst part in all of this is that it actually works. At least we see the next ad. And since we are bombarded between around 4,000 to 10,000 of ads every day, that feeling doesn't last very long. And that's why on today's video, I'm going to show you 10 quick mindset shifts that help you control that impulse shopping. Having a budget makes a huge difference with our relationship to shopping, and I will provide one in this video as well. But there is one thing that we are doing very wrong when it comes to budgets that make them fail. Every YouTube budget video that I watched always starts by saying, type down how much you are earning so you know how much you can spend. And I think this is a recipe for disaster. Without further ado, let's jump right into the tips before this video turns into a conspiracy one, so I can explain you why. If you're here purely for the budget part, feel free to skip to this part of the video, although I feel like you might take a lot of value out of the next quick tips. First one. The less you spend, the less you need to work. Think about it. We are taught that we need to work to buy stuff. But what if we think the other way around? The simpler I live, the less I need to work. That's why just knowing how much you earn and can spend will very unlikely be enough to keep you motivated to not go over budget. The only thing that it will actually do is to make you want to have more so you can spend more. Next, just because I like something doesn't mean I need to own it. If you see a wildflower, you have two options. You can choose to kill it, bring it home and stare at it while its beauty fades, or you can choose to leave it alone in the grass and let it thrive. Not everything is supposed to be owned to be appreciated. If you don't have the money to pay for it right now, you can't afford it, and that is okay. Having that pricey object will not make your life any better. That Rolex will never buy you more time. You don't need any sort of fancy possession to define your value as a person. And if someone says or tries to hint you otherwise, they're only mirroring their own insecurities. So stay away from loans as much as possible. Choose experiences rather than material things. The price of an object is much more than a price tag. It's also the time and the money you spend cleaning it, maintaining it, and making room for it. Do not throw money at your problems. This should always be your last resource. Be creative with what you already have and try to learn new skills so you can be as independent as possible and fix your problems by yourself. Next one, set automatic payments for things like water, gas, electricity, phone, internet, rent, and insurances. This way you don't forget your payments and receive extra fees at the end of the month. For everything else, I recommend you to use money instead of a credit card. A 10-euro purchase requires the exact same effort and body movements as a 1,000 one. If we actually have to count the notes and see them leave our hands, I I can 100% guarantee you that mentally that is going to cost you a lot more. And you're going to think twice before doing that purchase, especially the impulse ones. Track your spendings. Phones are already glued to our hands anyhow, so why not use a money app to track our spendings every time that you do a purchase or get charged by service. You'll never be able to tone down your problem areas if you're not aware what they are. Next, define your motivation. After creating a budget, create different folders or envelopes with the amount that you are allowed to spend on each category by month. Think about why you want to do it. Is it to live a stress-free life, to make a trip, to pay debt, to create an emergency fund, or to invest in your children's future? Whatever it is, having a visual motivation will make impulse buying less efficient. Having a picture of your kid on that envelope, for example, is a great way to make sure you will not touch it. And lastly, best investment is in yourself. It's time to stop trying to fit in and please everyone. It's just not possible. And by investing in yourself, I don't mean splurge money at clothes or the hair salon. Instead, invest in healthy food, in your hobbies, move your body, help your community, or learn something new. Cultivate you. The more self-esteem you have, the happier you will feel, obviously, but also the less money you're gonna spend to cover your insecurities. And now for our beloved budget. I want to start by saying that you don't need any fancy agendas, stickers, or markets, or have a drawing skills to be successful at budgeting. I made an automatic monthly and yearly budget on Notion. You can find it down in the description below, so the only thing that you need is to focus on your savings. It is, as always, 100% free, although if you want to make a donation, I would of course be very happy. Remember that it's always a good time to make a budget, whether it is January 1st or October 24th. If you arrived here after watching my previous video about the No Buy Year challenge, you are already familiar with the following categorization. If you want to bring your savings up to the next level or are in a situation where you are required to do some serious savings this year, maybe you'll also be interested in joining our little community in our 2024 Clutter No More journey. So let's go ahead and open our Notion budget. As you can see, it is divided in 5 categories. The first 2 are the essential category, so the priority is high. I also want to add that I'm currently based in Portugal, so some of these values are in that context. Others are purely random, so don't take them too seriously. It's just a way for me to show you how this works, so you can use it as a base to make your own budget. Okay, from the essentials, first you have the essential physical things that you consume. And here you should consider things like groceries, drugs. If you have any pets or kids, also consider their food and snacks and some basic hygiene items. Makeup is of course not an essential survival item, but it's something that I don't leave aside 100% yet. If you don't use makeup, great, you're already making some savings. You can define your budget weekly or monthly. For example, I try to go to the supermarket only once a week. So in this category, I will budget weekly. I also know that every time that I go to the supermarket, I tend to spend around 30 to 40 euros. So here you should set a realistic limit every week without being way too relaxed or way too strict. So for me, it's about 37 euros. And because a month has 4 weeks, I budget 37 euros times 4, so it's 148 euros. And those 148 euros is what I will type down here. If you don't know how much you spend at groceries or any other category, it is important to look at past expenses and make an average. All the items here have a page themselves. If you open the grocery tab, for example, you have all the weeks of the year here. This part is an optional step, but it is extremely important to track your expenses somewhere. If you prefer to do it in another app, just do it. Just gonna explain how you can do it here so you have everything in just one place. Here we can see that in the first week I spent 33.76. But on the second, I passed a little bit the budget with 38.67 euros because I had to restock some cleaning products. But because the previous week I was actually below the budget, I wouldn't worry too much about this. Remember that my weekly budget is 37 euros. This is optional, but I personally like having this idea on how am I doing in my categories, so I also know if there are some certain areas where I can improve. This means that this month so far, I spent 72.43 euros. I'm gonna scroll down here and write that value in. And that means that I still have available on groceries 1,703.57 cents. Just because you pass the budget once or twice, don't give up. Forgive yourself, but don't forget. And try to do better next time. Okay, so this was the weekly expenses. How about the monthly ones? Let's take drugs as an example. This is an expense that can happen anytime because you never know when you're gonna get sick. That's why it has a tag by demand. And here you should put a value more or less around what you usually spend per month. Knowing that hopefully there will be months that you will spend nothing and there will be others, more likely in winter, that unfortunately you will have to spend a bit more money. And because I haven't made any purchase so far this year, it looks empty. When you scroll down to the bottom, you'll find that the money still available is the same as the budget money. One thing you can do here is to add the link of a specific product that you buy. For example, let's take Fiona's food. It is more profitable to get 2 bags of 12 kilos all at once rather than to have one of the smaller bags or even just one of 12 kilos. By making this bigger order, I'm also saving on the delivery service because I'm only asking for it once. I know that 24 kilos of food are good for more or less 4 months, so I can more or less calculate that we'll be making 3 orders this year. So it would be 112 euros plus 5 euros of the delivery, which is 117 times 3. This gives 351 euros. This means that if I want to know my monthly expense, I have to divide 351 by the 12 months. And this gives me an average of 29.25. This value I am gonna input here. If I have this value, it gives me the 351 euros, but if I put more or less, this value also changes. One of the things I realized while doing my early budget is that sometimes I don't know how often I need to replace something. For example, argan oil, which is essential for me because I use it for my face, my body, my nails, my hair, but I have no idea how much a jar usually lasts me. That's why this table comes in handy to also know how long a product lasts. Of course, this only makes sense if you actually take the time and the effort to write the things down throughout the year. Next, there is the non-physical list. And these are things like rent, electricity, water, internet and phone, car payments if you have them, insurances, some health services like therapist, dentist, doctor. You can also include gym, included music, copyright service that I use for this channel. And you know, you basically can include anything that it's a service, so not a material good, that you need for sure to spend money throughout the year. If you have any loans to pay, for example, you also need to take care of it like an expense, so you should also add it here. Here you want to send, for example, your monthly rent value. And let's put 900 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. This is just as an example. So if you add the 900 here, you can see you have 10,800 per year as only as rent expenses. And this is probably going to be your biggest expense in the year. If you share an expense with a partner or with a friend, you can also have a personalized table for that. Let's take a look at the electricity, for example. Let's say that on average you spend 45 euros a month. When you're sharing expenses, you might want to update this 45 euros to 22.5. And then you will see that the result will also be translated on the yearly budget. Every table or item in this list is customizable. If you don't have a dog or any student loans, just choose to come here and delete those categories. Then the only if damaged category. And this is all about creating a budget for those annoying, unpredictable things that just happen. It's good to set some money aside as a safety net. Depending on exactly what that priority is, it can be considered medium or high. Also, think about if you maybe need to replace something in the near future. My phone has been failing me for the last month, so I'm not sure if it's gonna last until the end of the year. Because that is an essential item for me, I need to be prepared for that scenario. Okay, up next we have the personal exception. exceptions. And these are non-essential and extra items that make you happy. And let's be honest, this is more a bit of the superficial category. And because of that, I will be very, very careful about what you put in here, because you can justify almost anything makes you happy. Be sure to not confuse happiness with instant gratification after a purchase. In that case, that is only retail therapy. Having this in consideration, because I'm doing the low buy year challenge, I'm only allowed to buy gifts for others and not to myself. And I'm also allowing myself a budget for traveling. But of course, the priority of this category is low. And finally, we have the tone down. The way I see it, even if you are on a super tight budget, it's only realistic to allow yourself some room for some activities, whether it is social events or to just take yourself on a coffee date. We don't want to jeopardize our mental health in sake of a budget. But of course, if you're on a budget, you should do this with intentionality and with less frequency. In here, I would really recommend you to choose experiences over physical goods. But whatever you decide to put on this list, make sure you have a limit of how much you can spend on each item. So the priority on this one, I will define it as medium. And here you can see that I am allowing myself one meal with the limit of 20 euros each time. Let's look at the coffee tab, for example. I am also allowing myself one coffee per week with the budget of 12 euros. First week, you can see that I was under the budget. Second week, I didn't even go, which is great. So that means that the next week I can spend 31 euros in coffee, right? No. We get proud of how we did and we set the money directly to our savings and we do not touch it. Okay. And what happens if I want to go to a festival, for example? Then, first thing is to know how much that festival costs. Let's search for períodos de cura. One pass is 120 euros. 14 to 17 of August. So I will scroll down to week 33, which is the week of the festival. So this week I wouldn't spend any money. Let's just put this in gray background because this will be the week that I would go for this festival. This means that this is a 20 euro, and to cover up for the rest of my expenses for this week, that means that this week would be another 20 euros, another 20 euros, another 20 euros, another 20 euros. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and another 20 euros, 6, because 6 times 20 is 120. So that means that if I want to go to this festival on a budget, the last time that I can spend money on cultural or art or fun events would have to be on the week 21 of this year, so from 20 to 26 of May. At this point, I already know what I need to save to go to that festival, and then I can budget and think that, okay, is it still worth to go to that festival? And if the answer is yes, then you already know how to keep in the budget. And finally, we have the total amount, so the last column. And the only thing that basically matters in this selection is the two values at the end. And they represent how much you need to make a month, so this is the first column, and how much you need to make a year to be able to sustain that lifestyle. To be financially independent, you have to have a gap of profit between what you earn and what you spend. If you are making at least that early value, that is great. Just do your best from now on to stick to that budget. If you are making less than that value a year or a month, that means that you're living above your means. When it comes to saving, there is no third option like asking for a loan. So you have two options. You either find a way to make more money by asking for a raise or getting a side hustle, or you reduce your expenses. Raises take time and sometimes are not that easy to get. So the best thing you can do in between is to reduce your expenses. So back to your list. What can you reduce? Lowering the low priority items like the personal exceptions, for example, and maybe set lower limits for The tone down is always a good option. Can I reduce my budget for traveling? Instead of 1200, can I lower it down a little bit and use 840, for example? Or maybe I can even skip it completely this year. Depending on your situation, sometimes you need to make some temporary sacrifices to achieve your goals and get back on track. But there's also some things that you can try. Negotiate how much you're spending on your internet and on your phone service. Maybe you don't need that much data on your phone. Maybe even consider a neighborhood or area, or maybe a smaller house so you can lower your rent. You don't need 5 different streaming services all at once. Maybe you can just choose one and alternate each month, for example. Just play around with all these inputs until you get a value that is below your current paycheck. It's much more likely for you to succeed at your budget if you focus on what you really need rather than just set aside money for impulse buys without dealing with the source of the problem. Just a mindset shift that will really improve your chances on being successful at budgeting. That's it. I really hope that this year you are able to make your finance dreams come true and keep them up for years to come. And I also hope that this is a valuable tool to help you get there. You always amaze me with your great and imaginative ideas, so I can't wait to read them. Until next time, don't forget to stay kind to yourself and to others, and I will see you on the next video. Bye everyone, and happy savings!